Oracle offers a variety of storage parameters to control how data is stored in tables. Some of the important storage parameters are: initial. This parameter specifies the initial size of the table. It determines the amount of space allocated when a table is created. Next, this parameter specifies the size of the next extent to be allocated when the current extent is full. Increase. This parameter specifies the percentage by which the next extent should be increased in size, relative to the current extent. Min-extents. This parameter specifies the minimum number of extents that should be allocated when the table is created. Max-extents. This parameter specifies the maximum number of extents that can be allocated for the table. Tablespace. This parameter specifies the tablespace in which the table should be stored. Storage. This parameter is used to specify a number of other storage-related parameters, such as the amount of space reserved for the table, the type of compression to be used, and the block size of the table. PCTFREE. This parameter specifies the percentage of free space that should be left in each data block after data is inserted. PCTUSED. This parameter specifies the percentage of a block that should be filled with data before a new block is allocated. FreeLists. A freelist is where Oracle keeps tracks of blocks under the high watermark for an object. Each will have at least one freelist associated with it. As blocks are used, they will be placed or taken off the freelist as needed. Each free list group manages the free space in a separate list. It is used for parallel insert operations to reduce contention. Freelist groups allow us to allocate freelists to specific instances to reduce cross-instance contention for space. These storage parameters can be set at the table level or at the partition level for partition tables. It is important to choose appropriate storage parameters to ensure efficient use of storage space and optimal performance. Every table has some free space. The free space is either below the high watermark, the point at which data has been inserted into the table, or above the HWM. Blocks above the HWM are just there. They are not managed on a free list of any sort. We just know that every block above block N in a given extent is above the HWM, and hence, free to be used. The free space below the HWM is maintained in free lists. By default, a segment has one free list. All blocks belonging to a segment that have sufficient free space on them, PCTFREE and PCTUSED control when blocks come on and off of the free list, are in this free list. When you go to insert a new row, or a row migrates due to an update, we will go to this free list to find a block for you to insert into. If your insert makes the block go over its PCTFREE, that block will be removed from the free list, else it'll stay on there. Now, getting blocks off of the free list is a serial process. In order for multiple processes to concurrently access and modify this linked list, we must ensure only one session at a time modifies it. Hence, in a heavy insert/update system, the single free list can become a point of contention, one data structure for all inserters. This is where multiple free lists come into play. Oracle will take the free list and break it into many free lists. You are assigned a free list for a segment in some fashion, and other sessions will use other free lists for that same segment, sort of like how we balance transactions across rollback segments. Now, instead of having one data structure for 5 concurrent inserts into a table, we could have 5 data structures, no contention now. In Oracle, the PCTFREE parameter specifies the percentage of a database block to be reserved for future updates. When a block is initially allocated to a table, a certain percentage of the block is left empty for future updates. The PCTFREE parameter determines the amount of space to leave empty. The default value of PCTFREE is 10%, which means that 10% of the block will be left empty for future updates. However, this value can be changed to meet specific application requirements. A higher PCTFREE value means that more space is reserved for future updates, which can lead to less fragmentation and fewer block splits. On the other hand, a lower PCTFREE value means that less space is reserved for future updates, which can lead to more frequent block splits and increased fragmentation. In general, it is recommended to set PCTFREE to a value that is appropriate for the specific application requirements. Factors to consider include the frequency of updates, the size of the table, and the amount of available disk space. In the context of the Oracle database, PCTUSED refers to the percentage of space that must be used in a block before it is considered for future inserts. When a table or index block is initially created, it is marked as being 100% used, meaning that it is unavailable for future inserts. As rows are added and deleted, the block becomes less than 100% full. PCTUSED specifies the threshold for when a block becomes available for future inserts again. For example, if PCTUSED is set to 50, then a block must be at least 50% full before it is considered for future inserts. If the block is less than 50% full, then it is skipped, and a new block is allocated instead. This can help to avoid the overhead of constantly splitting and merging blocks as the table or index grows or shrinks. PCTUSED is specified when creating or altering a table or index using the PCTUSED parameter. The default value for PCTUSED is 40. In Oracle, PCTIncrease is a parameter that determines the percentage by which a table's size will increase when it needs to allocate new extents. When a table's data or index is inserted, and there is no space in the current extent, Oracle will allocate a new extent to store the data. PCTIncrease is used to specify how much larger the new extent should be compared to the current extent. For example, if the current extent is 1 megabyte and PCTIncrease is set to 50%, then the new extent will be 1.5 megabytes. Here's an example of how to create a table with a PCTIncrease of 20%. Create table my_table. ID number. Name varchar2, 50. PCTFREE 10. PCTUSED 40. PCTIncrease 20. In this example, the table has a PCTFREE of 10%, which means that each block in the table will be left 10% empty. PCTUSED is set to 40%, which means that when a block is 40% full, Oracle will try to allocate a new extent. And PCTINCRASE is set to 20%, which means that each new extent will be 20% larger than the previous one. initTrans is a parameter that can be used with Oracle's setTransaction command to specify the number of initial transaction slots to be allocated for a session. When a transaction begins, it requires a transaction slot to be allocated to store transaction-specific information such as undo information, locks, and version information. By default, Oracle allocates 2 transaction slots per session. However, you can use the initTrans parameter with the setTransaction command to increase the number of initial transaction slots allocated for a session. For example, the following command sets the initial transaction slots to 10 for the current session. Set transaction isolation level serializable, initially deferred, initTrans 10. Increasing the number of initial transaction slots can improve the performance of applications that use long-running transactions or that perform a high volume of concurrent transactions. However, setting the value too high can lead to excessive memory usage and may negatively impact performance. If you have a table that only undergoes inserts, use PCTFREE 0, you need to reserve nothing for updates. If you have a table that gets rows that double in size, PCTFREE 50 would make sense to reserve room for the updates. You need to understand how your data grows over time. If you insert it and update 10% of the rows and make them 20% larger, you would need to understand A. How many rows/block you get on average. B. What 20% of one of those rows means block percentage-wise. C. Use that as your PCTFREE. And just use automatic segment space management, ASM, so you don't have to worry about PCTUSED, freelists, freelist groups. initTrans would be based on what you think your maximum concurrent modification rate on a block would be. If you have an insert-only table in ASSM, set at default. If you tend to have a small table that you update like crazy, set it appropriately.